The next number 6 is bodybuilding. This is a type of weightlifting done by physique competitors who must become as muscular and aesthetic as possible for physique competitions in which their bodies are going to be compared with other athletes while flexing. This type of training is extremely advanced and involves complex periodization, splits, and extremely advanced, difficult weightlifting techniques, as well as a huge time commitment, with bodybuilders often working out 2 to 3 times a day to prep for competitions, achieving extreme levels of progressive overload and working out at extremely high intensity, and also with a very closely monitored diet with very specific and high levels of macronutrients and certain other nutrients. All right, this type of training is also extremely taxing on the body and often very unhealthy, especially with the stuff they do right before the competitions, and many of them use steroids, right? And this type of bodybuilding is also notorious for injuries and drug use, resulting in health problems, accelerated aging, and physical breakdowns in its participants. And so what I've done with the training that I teach is I've kind of taken the best of the physical fitness science that bodybuilders use and left out all the unhealthy stuff. All right, next number 7 is sport training. Sport training is any type of training that is customized for a certain sport. Sports training usually combines many different types of training that I'm listing here, which are programmed very specifically for sports performance demands. And there are even some forms of sports training that may be so highly specialized and specific for what is done in that particular sport that they won't be found anywhere else, right? Like how football players will push a sled with their coach standing on it, right? Which is a form of resistance training, but you wouldn't find that in any other type of training. Athletes who are training for mastery of a specific sport will be engaging in a highly specialized form of training that will look different than any other type of general resistance training you will see most people at the gym doing. These forms of training can oftentimes be very elaborate and immersive, involving large amounts of time, combining endurance-based activities with training for power and explosiveness, speed and endurance, as well as mastery of very specific physical skill sets, such as running and jumping in a certain manner, right? Or throwing and catching a specific type of ball in a specific type of way, sometimes while running or jumping, right? Interacting with other players, either, competitively against them or as a team, right? These types of training are incredibly specific and will be completely customized to whatever sport you are training for. Next, number 8 is mobility training. This is training the joints for a greater range of motion and overall health, which is of fundamental importance in athleticism, hypertrophy and strength training, basically any type of fitness, okay? Some forms of mobility training are stretching, swimming, functional training, and certain calisthenics or body weight routines. Most good forms of aerobic exercise, sports training, and any type of training that is done for health should contain a mobility component. Without the mobility component to your training, you will start to experience joint stiffness, aches and pains, training limitations, and possible injury, especially in your shoulders and rotator cuff, neck and back, and your hips, all right? Mobility is essential to your ability to move. That's literally what it means, all right? So make sure you are focusing on mobility in your training. 9, calisthenics and plyometrics. Calisthenics are resistance-based exercises in which your only source of weight is your body weight. For instance, push-ups and sit-ups. Plyometrics are a type of calisthenics exercise that are done rapidly from the stretch to the contraction and back without resting in between and with a jump involved. So jumping jacks are a common one, burpees or squat, thrusts, all right, any exercise that involves rapid, non-stop movement plus jumping. Number 10, high frequency training. This is when you are training the same muscles or doing a total body workout almost every single day. This may be done with one muscle every day and other muscles intermittently in order to focus on one muscle that needs more focus than anything else. For instance, if you're trying to grow a stubborn, lagging muscle that has not been developing at the same rate as the others, you might want to start doing certain things for that muscle every single day. However, this can also be done with a full body workout in order to spread out a large volume across the entire week to make it less taxing and more manageable to do on a daily basis. That way you aren't overtraining any one muscle group in a single session. And for this reason, training at a higher frequency is better, and it also trains the body to be able to recover faster. So it is also key to athleticism for that reason. High frequency training is great for intermediate lifters who have hit a plateau that they need to break through, but it is only sustainable when done right, with proper preparation, periodization and programming, conditioning, and only for a temporary period of time preceding a rest period. Next, number 11 is high volume training. This is training with a high number of exercises, sets, and reps, and oftentimes a relatively heavy weight as well, but the weight is not as important as the number of sets and reps. This type of training is purposely meant to be approaching the maximum recoverable volume that you can do and still recover from, and you need to be careful not to exceed it. The idea here is to push you to the limit of your work capacity, not beyond it, because otherwise you very well may injure yourself. And like with high frequency training, it is important to do this with a rest period afterwards, okay? And this is great for serious athletes who want to boost their strength or stimulate massive hypertrophy or really build their work capacity or just push their limits in any way, especially when preparing for a competition in the few months prior to it. You wouldn't do this right before the competition because then there's going to be fatigue and vulnerability that transfer to the competition, but doing this a couple few months beforehand can be a good idea. Next, number 12 is ego lifting. Yes, you heard it right. I said ego lifting. That has become an actual form of training that I think most of the people I see in the gym are doing. This is the type of lifting that is done typically by the macho gym bros with as heavy a weight as possible, as if they were strength training, but distinguishable from strength training because it is done without proper technique, form, or any kind of training or education. Ego lifting is done only for the purpose of inflating the ego, not the muscles, and making the person feel strong when technically they're not training their body well enough to become actually strong and aren't impressing anyone except themselves. Thus, this is not an efficient way to lift because it just does not produce much hypertrophy or muscular gain. And any gains that the lifters are making are usually done exponentially more slowly than need be. So make sure you are not ego lifting in the gym, because otherwise you may end up needing training type number 13, which is physical therapy and injury rehabilitation. All right, this is the type of training you need to engage in for a number of months or even years after you have become injured, or even just been ignoring certain pain for too long, and then having the doctor tell you that it's something wrong with you and you need physical therapy for it, and you should stop weightlifting until you're done with physical therapy. Something no weightlifter wants to hear, all right? And this type of training is not training for the body to become strong, build muscle, or cut fat, or do any of the things you want to be doing on your fitness journey, okay? This is solely for regaining lost health of a joint or connective tissue, such as a tendon or ligament or other body part that has been damaged. It is a training that is much gentler and less intense than most resistance training. It is done with a physical therapist instead of a personal trainer, and primarily consists of resistance band work, machine work, stretching, and if you're lucky, some massage, but don't expect it, right? And another thing is that it costs more to pay for a physical therapist than it does a personal trainer. So it's very important that whatever form of physical fitness training you are doing, that you stay away from ego lifting and that you do it safely and properly so you don't injure yourself and have to end up doing therapy. So whatever your goals may be, consider what type of training is right for those goals. And that's the form of training you're going to want to focus on most and study the most.